In part 2, we established that zombie schlock ruled the 80s. The once ironically poignant and socially biting monster devolved into a spectacularly rich catalog of endlessly fun goopy garbage. To carry the creature over into the 90s, somewhat poetically, came a remake of Romero's Night of the Living Dead, starring Candyman, bringing the phenomenon full circle, and effectively burying the genre for about a decade. People were just over it.
Show some respect.
So over it that one of the only noteworthy contributions during the 90s was the now cult classic Night of the Day of the Dawn of the Son of the Bride of the Return of the Revenge of the Terror of the Attack of the Evil Mutant Alien Flesh-Eating Hellbound Crawling Zombified Living Dead Part 2 in shocking 2D.
I want a tuna sandwich. Man, ain't no tuna here. I want a tuna sandwich.
It would take almost a complete reimagining of what a zombie is capable of in 2002 to bring the monster back to life and ignite a raging debate over what is scarier, fast or slow zombies. The definitive answer to that question in a second, but first, Danny Boyle takes the apocalypse fantasy to a whole new level. In Zombies Part 3, the end is extremely fucking nigh. The reason Night of the Living Dead was such a success in 1968 is because America was on the edge of chaos. But when the 80s happened and Wall Street was in full swing, people were more interested in sexy teens and melting faces than a dour prophecy of the end of days. Then somewhere in the mid-90s, the cocaine finally ran out, and the hangover of the early aughts was magnified by a shrinking global village and a 24-hour news cycle. Day in and day out came increasingly alarmist reports of a fear of global pandemics, militant foreign policies, global warming, scarce resources, religious wars, famine, the world population hit 6 billion just before the turn of the millennium, global warming again, killer bees, terrorism, more killer bees, especially more terrorism.
God, keep your shit together.
As the entire world seemed to be colliding on every front, be it resources, information, manufacturing, or religion, it was a return to a time of apocalyptic fears. Even if the entire world didn't come to an end, it certainly seemed like America's prestigious position as the sole superpower probably would. As profoundly in tune as horror cinema can be to social anxiety, handling that material with a subtle touch, not always its strong suit, which can be what's so fun about it. It can also be eye-rollingly lame. The metaphorical hammer wielded by 28 Days Later, the rage virus.
Rage.
Rage! So dumb. That little critique aside, there are two striking, terrifying, and defining elements to Danny Boyle's genre-altering 28 Days Later. The first is downtown London completely vacant of human life.
Hello!
It's not only an admirable feat of filmmaking, especially on such a low budget, it's also a truly arresting depiction of a post-apocalyptic landscape that chills to the bone without even employing the movie's monster.
Hello!
It's the memory of a city. It's the vision of a bustling metropolis at its most unimaginable, perfectly still. It's that silence right before a jump scare times a million. And just as the silence reaches its crescendo, courtesy of the brilliant Godspeed You Black Emperor, comes the second defining characteristic of the film. Fast zombies!
Hello? Are you okay?
Usain Bolt-esque zombies shot in jittery, panic-inducing zombie vision is really one of the few instances of a drastic change to an integral part of a classic monster being enthusiastically embraced by audiences. It not only made 28 Days Later a hit, it also rewrote the expectation of zombies for the rest of the decade. Globalization and the fear of pandemics have gone hand in hand since at least the 1400s, and that's obviously never been more true than in an era of deregulated air travel and increased international trade. So many cool new flus every year. If you're from Toronto like me, you probably still have a Rolling Stone SARS mask squirreled away somewhere. It's probably with your copy of Give Up and your X2 X-Men United t-shirt. Stand up, 2003. A zombie virus has always, at the very least, been on the periphery of body horror. It's about disease, it's about degeneration, and it's about the inevitability of mortality. You could have alternately titled 28 Days Later, Hemophobia.
Oh my God!
Ew! Although vomiting blood into people's faces is probably the most nauseating depiction of the spread of a zombie virus, 28 Days Later is not the first film to depict a zombie outbreak as a viral infection. Once again, Romero.
It's madness unleashed by human error.
This is exactly the kind of thing we're trying to prevent.
A lethal terror snowballs into hell. The Crazy.
2 years after The Crazies, David Cronenberg tackled the anxieties of sexually transmitted infections that were the itchy aftermath of the 60s and 70s. Premiering just 6 years before HIV would enter the global consciousness, Shivers was both predictive of and achieved cult status during an era of sexual fear, repression, and sterilization. The film follows the outbreak of a parasitic infection in a Montreal high-rise that is half aphrodisiac and half venereal disease.
A combination of aphrodisiac and venereal disease.
The parasite amplifies the host's desire to satiate their sexual impulses to an irresistible and violent level. Cronenberg masterfully balances the dangers of both the indulgence in and the repression of our basic and unsettlingly latent human urges. Its depiction is so depraved in this film that Cronenberg later claimed that he was evicted from his Toronto apartment after the film's release based on a morality clause that he had in his lease. A great example of such depravity? Parasitic stomach boners, a horrifying creation and practical effect only ever revisited by the equally groundbreaking Angus.
You get a boner in your stomach?
Cronenberg would return to a zombie outbreak virus in 1977 with his film Rabid, which envisions a voracious new strain of rabies that originates in a prosthetic dick grafted into the armpit of porn stars Marilyn Chambers and is transmitted sexually. Cronenberg is awesome. Both films rule. Definitely check them out.
Hello?
The success of 28 Days Later is no real surprise. Socially anxious times often make for apocalyptic hits. As it felt like the world was falling apart, people were enamored with a groundbreaking presentation of what that might look like. You marry that fear with the visions of auteurs like Danny Boyle or David Cronenberg, and you get these genre-elevating contributions to culture.
We have to go.
Yeah.
Go fucking where?
28 Days Later and the remake of Dawn of the Dead ignited the most contentious debate in zombie history. We're talking, of course, about fast versus slow zombies. This is extremely stupid. Fast zombies are way more horrifying than slow zombies. Wake up to the future of zombies, slow zombie purist nerds! I will agree that there is something to be said for the anxious, claustrophobic inevitability of a slow zombie movie, but not only are fast zombies straight up instantly panic-inducing, they also solve the problem of the Fezzik inconsistency that slow zombie movies always employ to create cheap, unearned tension at the drop of a hat.
When you see, you use different moves when you're fighting. After it does it, people, then we only have to be one about one.
If you can rip through 20 zombies like it's nothing, surely you should have no problem escaping just one.
Bastards.
Although 28 Days Later is probably the first film to successfully turn the tide in favor of fast zombies, it's not really the first to experiment with a speedier, more terrifying monster. 1980's Nightmare City was probably the first film to feature fast zombies, nerds correct me in the comments, but it's little more than a god-awful Italian exploitation film that revels in the grotesquerie of things like nipples being cut off. Sorry Rob Zombie, you're late to the game on this one. And the gloriousness of things like zombies firing machine guns and driving cars. Last week we said the 80s were a wonderful time for practical effects and weed. This one is really only a win for weed.
Well, how are you feeling today, Phil?
Horrible. I feel like somebody who's waiting for the hatchet guy to chop off his head, Doctor.
Guess what happens to Phil? Night of the Comet is another early and rare adopter of the fast zombie. It's also another early innovator of the full-blown apocalypse survivor zombie fair movie. It's also another great example of a trapped in the mall fantasy, but with the addition of evil sentient stock boy zombies.
Just a few days ago, we were only stock boys. Now we own the store.
What do you want? You want us to pay for it, what?
You wouldn't believe what we want from you.
Let's be clear though, when we're talking about fast zombies, we're talking about this. But if you're more afraid of this, you're fucking crazy. This actually makes me sweat to watch. This makes me just want to get high and eat junk food. Slow zombies have a richer, more storied cultural history. Fast zombies make me shit my pants. That is my only criteria for this debate. I'm sorry purists, it's 2014. No one actually gets scared watching The Walking Dead. They just want to see people wield swords and zombies melted to the pavement. That's it. And that pretty much brings us to present day, where the fear of the world ending is replaced by the fantasy that it already has. Let us know in the comments what side of the fast versus slow zombie debate you fall on, and subscribe for our final installment on zombies, part 4. The Walking Dead is so goddamn depressing, but it sure is popular for some reason. Our recommendation for this week is not only one of the best fast zombie movies, it's also probably one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. It's a Spanish film called Wreck. And yes, I know if you're watching this, you've probably already seen it, but I'm putting it out there anyways because it's so damn good. You might also know it in its American form, Quarantine. If so, shame on you. I'm all for remakes, but this one was destined to fall short of its near perfect source material. Child zombies are just so damn scary. Enjoy.